I'm sure it's not him, Berg said. Do you mind if I go now? Nathan then went down to sit in his large office chair. He looked outside and could see the sky was now completely black, with only the moonlight being out. After letting out a big sigh, he leaned back and put his legs on the desk. Let's call it a day. It looks like I've wasted everyone's time here for no reason, Nathan said. You're all free to go home, and remember to get a good rest. Quinn was unsure what had just happened. Perhaps Berg really did see someone else running through those halls and it wasn't him, but whatever the case, they were now free to go. Quinn and Vorden looked at each other and walked quickly out of the room. They had the urge to run, but they tried to walk in a slow and normal way. Otherwise, the others would notice that something was up. Before leaving, Vorden turned and said, Thank you, Berg, I owe you one. Just remember this for the future, Berg replied. Outside, Peter was walking through the forest. He was no longer limping, as his legs were now completely healed. However, the pain in his stomach still hadn't disappeared. It was a strange feeling. Peter's mind was all there. It was him, and he could control his body, but all he could think about was eating raw human flesh. He kept thinking about how delicious Earl had tasted. Not wanting to hurt any of his friends, he tried to go as far away from school as possible, and before he released, it had ended up in the dark forest once again. Am I going to die if I don't find anything? Anyone? He slowly made his way through the woods until eventually he had reached a pathway. The pathway went around the outskirts of the woods and park until it eventually had an entrance and an exit, one leading to the city and the other leading back to the direction of the school. But it was late at night, and not many people would be walking through the park to head to the center of the city, as all the shops would be closed by now. The only thing that was still open was convenience shops that were stationed just a little bit before the park. Should I head to the convenience store? Maybe I can find someone and follow them back, pull them into the woods, Peter was saying to himself. Just as Peter was thinking of going through with his suggestion, he spotted someone walking down the path. His body wanted to lunge out at the person, but Peter tried to fight against it, staying in the woods. Suddenly, the person stopped and stood still. I can feel your bloodlust from here, the boy said. Come out, you ghoul, and tell me where the hell your master is. The boy's eyes glowed red in the dark as he stared right into Peter's eyes. Quinn and Vorden headed back to their dorm room, making sure not to walk too fast. They didn't want another situation where a student would see them running through the halls, which would draw attention and make them look suspicious. But as they walked through the halls, several thoughts were running through both of their minds. Quinn could no longer feel the connection between himself and Peter, while Vorden was kicking himself for not making sure that Peter and Layla were okay. He just never thought Peter would get hungry so quickly. He only ate Earl yesterday. They had finally arrived just outside the room, and when they opened the door, the first thing they saw was the broken window and glass shards all over the floor. Huh? Where's Layla? Quinn asked. You don't think Peter already ate her, do you? But if that was the case, Quinn would have gotten a message from the system, and also there was no blood to be seen in the room. That's when they heard a small little sobbing sound coming from one of the corners. As they turned their heads to see where the sound was coming from, they could see Layla curled up into a ball, sobbing in the corner. Oh, Quinn said with a sigh of relief, you're still alive. Layla looked up and noticed the two had arrived back together. Where were you guys? Layla said with an angry tone. I can't believe you left me on my own. You know I'm not strong enough to deal with something like this. It was clear Layla had been given quite a shock. Quinn did his best to calm her down. He looked at her sobbing away and didn't know what to do in this type of situation. He had never encountered a girl crying before. Then a memory came into his head, one that he had almost forgotten. When he was only 3 years old, Quinn had gotten lost from his mother in the supermarket. The place seemed to be a whole different world to him at the time. He felt alone and frightened when his mom finally found him. She had given him a big hug that made all the bad feelings go away. Just then, Quinn wrapped his hands around Layla tightly. It's okay, don't worry, Layla. I'm sorry about all of this. It's all my fault. I should have known better, Quinn said. Although Layla was frightened, she hadn't expected Quinn to do something like this. The hug felt nice and warm and reminded her of her family. But what made everything even better was the look on Vorden's face. For some reason, when Vorden saw this, he had a look of worry on his face. Layla thought that perhaps it was jealousy because she was getting closer to Quinn, but actually, Vorden was worried about Syl. Luckily, Syl was quietly sleeping inside the dark room and didn't get to see this scene. The hug went on for a while, to the point where it seemed to be getting awkward for Layla. This was because Quinn was unsure about the appropriate amount of time to hug someone. "Quinn, I'm okay now, you can let go," Layla said, as she made sure to wipe away the remaining tears from her face. "Layla, you need to tell us what happened. Where's Peter?" Vorden asked. Layla recalled the events of what happened while the two of them were away, saying that it hadn't happened that long ago, and that just around 15 minutes had passed. This coincided with Quinn feeling the loss of connection with Peter. "If he's outside, I have to go find him before we have another Earl situation on our hands," Quinn said. "This is bad," Vorden said, "especially since they already suspect us. We can't deal with a situation like this right now." Quinn then started to get ready to leave the room. "You two stay here. Worst case scenario, I have to use my shadow skill to hide. Besides, even if someone saw me, they won't know who I am." "Wait!" Vorden shouted. "I'm coming with you. If Peter is like Layla says he is, then you're going to need me. We're just going to have to go through with Plan B." Quinn didn't like it. He didn't like it one bit. Whatever happened, he didn't want to go through with Plan B no matter what. But right now, what choice did they have? "All right, come on, let's go," Quinn said. "Layla, it might be best if you head back to your room. Also, if you can prepare some blood for me, I might need it when I come back." Layla nodded as the two of them went off downstairs. "Quinn, sometimes I think you're too nice for this world," Layla thought. After clearing away the broken pieces of glass, Layla decided to head towards her dorm room. She knocked a few times before entering, pondering if Erin was already back or not. There was no answer, and when she entered the room, Erin was nowhere to be seen. Underneath her bed, she pulled out a little chest with a digital lock. After entering the authorization code, the chest opened, and she took out a sphere-shaped object. She then brought the ball with her over to the room door. That way she could hear if anyone was coming in, and she could quickly put it away again. Pressing the top of the ball caused it to light up, and she waited for a few moments as the light dimmed in and out. "Hello, Agent 84. Do you have another report to give?" a female voice said, coming from the communication ball. "Yes, ma'am. I wish to give you an update on the report I gave you earlier. It turns out what I believed would be good for our cause is not so good for us after all. I will send you the full details later." "That is a shame to hear," the female voice coming from the orb said. "I hope you do get to enjoy your time left at the school and continue with the original mission. Also, on another note, Mr. True Dream will be visiting the base soon. We are unsure of which candidates will be selected this time, but don't worry too much if you are selected." "Noted," Layla replied. "May Pure be with you," the woman said. "May Pure be with you," Layla replied in a way that made it sound forced. "Quinn, I hope I'm doing the right thing not just for my sake, but for everyone's," she thought to herself. Peter's senses were all over the place. He couldn't even tell what was in front of him. Everything just seemed on high alert, and his vision was quite blurry, while the smell around him was overwhelming. The grass underneath his feet, the wood sap from the trees, all of them combined was hard for him to keep all separate in his mind. In the end, the only thing he could concentrate on was the human-shaped figure in front of him. The pain had gotten the best of him, and he was willing to do anything to get rid of that hunger. As Fex saw the ghoul leap out from the forest, he prepared himself by getting into a fighting stance. It had leapt quite a distance from the forest and out onto the path. While it was in the air, it had stuck out all of its limbs very wide, like it was some type of beast. Then, at the right moment, Fex lifted his head off the ground and swung it outward like a whip, hitting Peter right in the center of his body. He went flying through the air quite a distance away until his body banged on the floor and skittered away. "Well, that should keep it down for a while," Fex said to himself. However, nearly instantly, Peter was standing up once again. A few of his ribs had been broken in the process, but they regenerated almost instantly. Even though Peter was a ghoul, Fex was sure he had used enough force to take one out. Is he starving? Now, who would be stupid enough to turn someone and not have everything prepared beforehand? Fex thought, not knowing how Peter came to be a ghoul. A starved ghoul healed a lot quicker than usual, and they were dangerous to go up against, even for vampires. Still, this also came with its downsides. The more times it would heal itself, the more energy it would use. It was starving itself more each time it healed, and eventually there wouldn't be any energy left, and healing would come to an end. Peter came rushing forward once again, but Fex didn't look too worried. I'm not into killing other people's family members. If I did, then it could start a civil war, and I don't want to be the one to blame for that." Fex then started to fiddle about with his fingers, pulling them in and out as if he was making something, but when looking at his hands, nothing could be seen. With Peter coming closer to him, he was finally ready. He ran towards Peter, and just when Peter was about to swing for his head, Fex ducked at the right moment. He dashed forward, not touching Peter, but swiping his hands around him in the process. This continued onward for a while. Peter would strike while Fex would dodge, staying close to him, moving his hands but not touching. Then Peter started to notice something. His movements were getting slower and slower as the fight continued. His arms were the first to slow down, and eventually it was his legs. When he looked down and noticed what was happening, it was too late. Peter had fallen to the ground and was now completely tangled and tied up in some type of string. "It's a shame. If you worked for me, I could turn you into a really good puppet. You're quite strong for a ghoul. It took more strength than I thought to slow you down." As Fex started to think of puppets, another person came into his mind, the girl who had frozen him to the wall. Now she would make a perfect human puppet. I wonder if she would accept. Fex then knelt and looked at Peter, who was trying his best to break free. But the string was almost indestructible and was being powered by Fex's MC. He then lifted Peter's head off the ground and looked into his eyes, casting some type of spell. "Suppress the hunger within yourself. Calm down." After saying those words, Peter felt something inside his body change. The hunger suddenly didn't feel as bad as before, and he was slowly starting to get a hold of himself a bit more. He could now see the person in front of him clearly. He also noticed that this person smelt different to other people anyway. "I didn't create you, so the spell won't last for long," Fex explained. "Now tell me, which family do you belong to? If you're a starving ghoul, you couldn't have been turned too long ago, otherwise you would have evolved by now. Are you even registered? Is that why you won't speak?" Although Fex was saying these words, Peter didn't understand any of it. He understood the words individually, but had no clue what was happening. Seeing that Peter would no longer answer, Fex let go of his head, allowing it to fall to the ground. These damn ghouls are always loyal to their leader. It was a waste trying to get anything out of him. "Hey, if you don't eat something soon, you will get us caught, and you know when that happens, your whole family will be punished for it." Fex was now sitting on the floor, calmly talking to Peter. Even though Peter had just tried to attack him, he was wondering why this person wasn't angry with him. This was a first in Peter's whole life. If he ever tried fighting back even just once, then the punishment would come back around tenfold. He learned that quickly during his school days, so he decided to never fight back again. But this time, Peter was the one attacking someone, and it was clear this person was a lot stronger than him. So why wasn't he being hit, stabbed, burnt, or even killed? Peter just couldn't understand it. "What do you mean, my family?" Peter finally answered. "They have nothing to do with this. They're just normal shopkeepers. Keep them out of this. It was my fault that I attacked you. Just punish me." Hearing Peter's words, Fex felt like something wasn't quite right about this whole thing. However, he didn't have long to think about it. When suddenly out from the side, a big line of red blood was shot out. Fex didn't even notice it until the last moment, causing him to take the blow with his bare hands. He was pushed back a few feet before he could break the attack. He wasn't wearing any beast gear on his body, and the same could be said for his hands as well. Blood was now dripping from his forearms where the attacks had wounded him. But what was most surprising to Fex was the fact that he recognized the attack. It was a blood attack that only other vampires could use. When he looked up, he could see what could only be described as a demon. White, hollow, menacing eyes, with a mask and a Japanese demon design covering his mouth. As Peter looked up, he didn't even recognize the figure standing in front of him. But of course, it was Quinn in his new suit. As soon as Quinn and Vorden went past the school gate, they were free to rush off and run about, now that they were away from the eyes of the soldiers and guards. They had just entered the path, and it seemed the place was empty of people, probably because the curfew was coming up. "Vorden, I'm going to go on up ahead. I think I got Peter's scent," Quinn said. "Peter's scent? What are you, a dog?" Vorden said sarcastically. But the next second, a shadow had gone to Quinn's body, and soon after it was replaced with a black figure, a mask on his face, and his beast equipment on his arms and legs. Into the night he sped away, rushing into the forest. The attack was so sudden that Fex couldn't quite see what had hit him, But as he looked at the man in the strange suit, he started wondering what on earth this person was. It didn't look like any outfit humans usually wore, and for some reason, his entire body was covered. "Is that thing even comfortable? I imagine it must be pretty tight down there," Fex said sarcastically, while glancing at the strange person's groin area. While moving closer to the mysterious figure, Fex made sure not to make any sudden movements. The wounds on his forearms were already starting to heal, so they didn't bother him much anymore. "Hey, I know you might just be trying to save this." Fex then looked at Peter, who was lying on the floor between them. "Human, I guess. But I think you don't understand. I've tied him up for your and everybody else's safety. I suggest you go back home so we can forget any of this ever happened." As he got closer, Fex started to notice something, or rather, the absence of something. "Where's his scent? I'm not smelling anything from him," he thought. Usually, humans and vampires have this aroma around them. Everybody has a specific smell. It was what attracted humans around them. Although vampires could suppress this to some extent, they could never completely get rid of it, especially not in front of other vampires. But for this time, he met a person who had no scent at all. Because of this, he couldn't identify this mysterious person or even guess his race. This made him a bit more careful around this suspicious person. Quinn, on the other hand, had no clue of his suit's side effects. While wearing the mask, he wasn't able to use his nose to its full capacity. The suit that blocked out the sun was also blocking out his smell. Quinn's mind was occupied with other things right now. He was trying to decide if he had to kill this person or not. The question was, had Peter attacked this person to try and eat him? And did the person manage to defend himself and also tie Peter up with his ability? Or had nothing happened yet, and had this person randomly attacked Peter and then tied him up? For some reason, Peter was very calm right now. This was not what Quinn had been expecting, because before he lost all sense of control over Peter through their bond. Quinn's identity was still a secret, at least for now. His #1 priority was getting Peter out of the situation and back to their dorm room. He could deal with any other issues later. Quinn had a feeling, from the way Fex was moving, that he was being cautious. If Quinn was going to dash for it to get Peter out, the most likely outcome would be that the fight was going to break out. If that was the case, it would be best if Quinn first found out his ability. Inspect. Name, Fex Sanguinus. Race, vampire. After seeing the information, Quinn froze for a bit. He had to reread it twice just to make sure what he saw was correct. After what the blonde vampire in the system had said he knew, there had to be other vampires out there, but he never expected to see one in the same school as him. Then, a horrible thought ran through his mind. He remembered what the blonde vampire in the system had told him. Now that he was a vampire, they would come after him and be careful of them. It was too soon. Quinn didn't even know how strong he was compared to other vampires. If this new vampire wanted to take Peter away, then he could have him. Quinn wanted to change things, but that wasn't going to be possible with him dead. But when Quinn tried to run away, something inside of him gave him a jolt. A force was pulling him towards Peter and refusing to let him leave. At the same time, Peter was feeling the same thing. Quinn then fell on one knee, breathing heavily. "What is this?" Quinn asked. "It's your family bond," the system explained. "The two of you are bonded by the magic of your blood. Similar to how Peter can never harm you as his master, you can never desert him." "What is this vampire family?" Quinn said as he got up from the floor. If he couldn't run away without Peter, then he only had one choice. Skill Shadow Cloak activated. Right in front of Fex's eyes, his opponent had disappeared, and without giving off any smell, it was hard for him to locate this person. "So it looks like you're going to try and fight me. Well, you made the wrong decision." Suddenly, a tingling feeling he felt in his neck alerted him that something was coming. A claw-like blood mark randomly came out from his right side, and behind it, several more followed. However, before the attack left Quinn's hands, Fex was able to retaliate. "Blood barrier!" Swiping his hands upward, a thin red barrier was formed. As each swipe hit the barrier, it would shake a little, but was completely unaffected by the attack. But seeing Quinn's attack made Fex realize something. The attack produced just now was a blood swipe. It was the same basic skill all vampires were required to learn. "Wait! You're a vampire! We're on the same side! Stop!" Fex shouted. Even though Quinn could hear Fex's words, he chose to ignore them over the systems. This whole night might have been an act. Daze. Daze skill faded. Quinn was hoping the daze skill would go through, allowing him to flash step behind his opponent and perform a hammer strike, but it failed to make him change plans. Putting both of his hands together, Quinn formed a larger blood swipe, throwing out a single large attack. Look, if this ghoul belongs to your family, maybe I can help you. We can figure out something together. Seeing the red line of attack, Fex had no choice. He too placed both hands together and let out a blood swipe of his own. Only his was significantly larger than Quinn's. As the two blood swipes collided, Fex consumed Quinn's and carried on going forward. The only thing Quinn could do was use his flash step to avoid the attack. Quinn then activated his boots. If his blood swipe wasn't strong enough, then he would need to rely on his speed. He went in close and threw out a fist performing blood spray at the same time. However, each attack was deflected by Fex. After seeing Quinn struggling in hand-to-hand combat, Fex found everything quite strange. Does he not even know the basic martial arts? It was something all vampires were required to learn, but Quinn was throwing his punches out quite randomly. But then he also knew some advanced skills, such as the flash step, so he couldn't be a beginner. If you keep going like this, you'll die before giving me a chance to help you, Fex said with urgency in his voice. Quinn had used up a lot of his HP, just trying to hit Fex even once, but nothing seemed to be working. Just get out of here, Peter shouted. Leave me, there's no point in both of us dying. Once again, Fex was confused, but this time by the ghoul. If they belonged to the same family, the blood bond wouldn't allow one to be deserted in time of need. With nothing working, Quinn only had one choice. He threw out a blood swipe and caught it using his shadow control. With the scythe being held in his hands and his suit of armor and mask on, he truly looked like a Grim Reaper. Is that the shadow ability? But that's been lost for years, Fex said. Just who is this guy? Suddenly, a beep was heard coming from all three of their watches. As they looked down, they noticed the time was 9:45. It was the 15-minute warning sound, telling them curfew time was coming. Running as fast as he could, Vorden desperately tried to catch up with Quinn, who was running in front. However, no matter how fast he went, he couldn't keep up, and he even lost sight of Quinn. He could no longer be seen in the vicinity. Nevertheless, he didn't give up, because he knew that Quinn would need him once they found Peter. Beep! When he was only a short distance away from the park, where he assumed Quinn was heading, his watch lit up, and the sound of notification was heard. When he looked at the watch, the time stated that it was 9:45. This meant that they only had 15 minutes before curfew time. In most cases, it wouldn't be so bad, since students would just be brought in and be punished a little. But for Quinn and Vorden, who were already suspected of perpetrating a murder, it would look suspicious if the two of them were out a night after curfew and didn't have a good reason for it. Knowing this, Vorden had no choice but to turn around and head back to the dorms. He had to trust that Quinn would find Peter and catch up to him in time. Seeing the message on the watch, Quinn started to panic. If he wanted to make it back in time, he would need to leave now. He didn't have time to rescue Peter. Once again, when Quinn tried to move, he was stopped by the bond. He tried to force through, but it was pulling him down to the ground. Fex could see something was up. Hey, we need to get back, right? Fex said. That skinny guy said something about being in our rooms before 10. I don't know why you're attacking me, but you need to understand we're on the same side. Fex looked at Peter and had a little hunch on what the latter was thinking, but it wasn't something he could confirm right now. Look, you aren't meant to be here, neither am I, so I won't tell anyone about you. I'll leave it in your hands, but if you need any help, then I suggest that you come to me. Soon after, a cloud of mist filled the air where Fex was once standing. After the mist started to disappear, it looked like Fex was vanishing away with it. Is he gone? Quinn asked. That mist is a transformation spell, the system explained. Most likely he has turned into something that allows him to pick up more speed. With that knowledge, a weight was lifted from his shoulders, but there was still another problem weighing on his mind, and he was soon reminded of it. Peter started to scream at the top of his lungs. It felt like he was being stabbed repeatedly in his stomach, and as his hunger grew, so did his strength. The tight strings that were once holding him down were starting to snap one by one. Quinn, quickly, give him some of your blood. It will only be temporary, but it should calm him down as you have more control over him, said the system. Quinn used shadow equipment to put his equipment back into his dimensional space, including the suit and the mask he was wearing. Then, using the tip of his tooth, he bit down on his thumb, causing blood to be drawn. He walked closer to Peter, and after just taking a few steps, Peter lifted his head and turned it towards Quinn. A snarling sound was made, as if to give a warning for Quinn not to get any closer. Peter's eyes were now red once again, and his fangs were on full display. "Are you sure you won't hurt me?" Quinn said. "Positive. Vampires have a set of rules that they must follow. Otherwise, their powers will begin to retaliate against them. Remember how you felt just moments ago when you tried to flee, right? No matter how hard you fought against it, it was impossible to fight back. It will be the same for him if he tries to hurt you." Looking at Peter, who continued to snarl at him, he still wasn't quite sure whether to believe the system or not, but he had no choice. Peter was like this because of him, and now there was no going back. The snarling persisted as he went forward, but exactly as the system had said, even though Quinn was practically holding Peter's hand, he never tried to bite him. Quinn then lifted his hand and started to squeeze the blood from it, allowing it to drip into Peter's mouth. Just like that, in almost an instant, Peter started to calm down. "How long will this last?" Quinn asked. "Long enough," the system replied. Placing Peter on his back and equipping his beast boots, he activated his wind walk. He no longer had any time to take it easy, so he ran as fast as he could back to the school without any intention of slowing down. Vorden had safely made it back into the room on time, and Layla had left long before to go back to her dorm room. In the kitchen, lay down on the table, he had gotten what looked like a meat cleaver. "Okay, Vorden, you can do this." "I can't believe you're going this far," Rayton said. "I have to, otherwise Peter will endanger us all." "Then just kill the guy. I'll even do it for you like the last time," Rayton replied. "But Quinn doesn't want that, and Syl is finally starting to change. We can't have him go back to how he once was," Vorden said. For once, Rayton didn't have a stinging reply. Vorden then placed his arm on the table, laying it flat, while grabbing the meat cleaver with the other. "Here goes nothing." He swung it down, but at the last second, he stopped just inches above his limb. "I can't do it. How can anyone cut their arm off?" A thud sound was heard in the room, and as Vorden looked up, he could see that Quinn had arrived while bearing Peter on his back. The two of them had come through the broken window. "Looks like I just made it in time," Quinn said, relieved. The sound on their watches went off again, indicating that it was now 10 o'clock. A ping would then be sent to the security office, revealing the location of all those who were not located in their rooms at that moment. However, as soon as Peter had entered the room, the smell of fresh human flesh had entered his nose, and he once again succumbed to his crazed self. Quinn quickly held him down using all of his strength, but the struggle was tough. It felt like Peter was just as strong as Quinn. The only thing that he could do was put on his gauntlets, but if he did, the second he let go of Peter, he knew he would go after Vorden. "Now is not the time to be hesitating," Vorden said, but once again as he looked at the meat cleaver and his hand, his heart started beating like crazy. "Ah, you big bastard, let me do it," Rayton said as he took control of the seat. Without hesitation, Rayton swung the meat cleaver down onto his arm. Unlike Vorden, though, he didn't hesitate one bit. Vorden said as he chucked over his arm towards Quinn and Peter. As Vorden's arm was flying through the air, Peter managed to overpower Quinn and push him off. Peter leapt into the air like a dog trying to catch the arm. It would have looked funny if it wasn't so gruesome. It was as if he was playing catch, but instead of a stick, he was catching an arm. His jaws extended much further than a normal human. When he caught the arm in his mouth, he immediately bit down on it and started eating. Vorden looked down at the meat cleaver. It was covered in blood, and so was the kitchen counter where he had cut his arm off. Strangely, there wasn't any blood on the hand holding the cleaver. "Vorden, are you okay?" Quinn asked, with a worried expression on his face. "Don't worry, I'll be fine," Vorden replied with a little smile. "Guess we needed Plan B more than we thought." When Quinn looked at Vorden, he had expected to see blood gushing from the wound where he had cut off his arm. Instead, he saw that the wound had closed itself and was already starting to heal bit by bit. At the same time, Peter was still gnawing away on Vorden's arm, entirely focused on devouring its skin and bone. Vorden felt a bit strange, seeing Peter eating his arm right in front of him. Instinctively, he grabbed at his arm. He felt the part below his elbow was already starting to grow back. This made him sigh in relief. Luckily, the healing ability he acquired was already starting to work. I hope this is going to be enough for him, because I don't feel like going through this again. Today, Vorden said. It should be. When he finished eating, he will calm down a bit, Quinn replied. He was just repeating the words of the system right now because he wasn't sure of anything anymore. When Peter finally finished eating the arm, Quinn felt strange energy surging through his body. It felt the same as the first time Peter ate human flesh. It was a strange situation for Peter because he was aware of everything that was happening, but he didn't have control over his body because he was fully consumed by his hunger. Looking at Vorden, Peter noticed his arm was missing. With fear in his voice, he stammered, Vorden, your arm. I don't know. Peter felt appalled with himself. This thing? Vorden said as he lifted his stump. Don't worry about it. In a few hours, it will have grown back. This was our backup plan in case you lost control before we had found a permanent solution for you. I just didn't want you thinking of me like a chicken nugget you can eat whenever you get hungry, Vorden said, trying to lighten the mood. Before coming back to our room, I went down to the canteen and copied the ability of a student who has regenerative power. We didn't expect you to be hungry so soon after you fed on Earl yesterday. All three of them were silent for a while. They were thinking about the crazy situation that they were in right now. After some time, Peter broke the silence. Thank you, both of you. You've always been nice to me and treated me right even after I betrayed you. You still saved my life, and even now you went to such lengths to help me. As they looked around the room, they realized how much of a mess they had made. There was a big hole in the window where Peter had smashed through it, and shards of broken glass could be seen underneath it. Blood was all over the place. On the kitchen counter, I guess we better get started with cleaning this place before anyone finds out what happened here, Quinn said. Each of them took their turn cleaning up the place, but there wasn't much they could do about some areas. They couldn't magically restore a window, and the scratches made on the wooden floor could only be fixed so much. When Vorden was cleaning the kitchen counter, he said, Hey, Quinn, you fancy a drink? At the same time, he was squeezing some blood from a towel. Quinn was amazed at how Vorden could still crack a joke in a situation like this, but then again, nothing ever seemed to faze the guy. Since turning into a vampire, Quinn wasn't affected much by the sight of blood anymore. Even Peter eating Vorden's arm didn't bother him much. What surprised him was how well Vorden was handling it. While they were busy cleaning up, Quinn had the chance to ask the system some questions, because right now he had a lot of them. Do you know how long Peter will be required to eat human flesh? Quinn asked. Well, for once I have some good news for you. Peter is the type of ghoul that needs to be fed daily, the system responded. If that is good news, you have some sick sense of humor, Quinn thought. Just wait, young one. The ones that require food more often quickly get stronger. If you carry on feeding Peter for a week, then by the end of it, he should evolve. In the middle of their conversation, a notification screen popped up. New quest received. Make your family stronger. 2 out of 7 feed your ghoul, Peter, 7 different types of human flesh. Reward? Family member evolution. Well, will you look at that? It looks like my hunch was right, the system said. Quinn found the words of the system strange. Was he not in charge of everything? Until this point, he thought that AI and the systems were the same things, but that didn't seem to be the case. I thought you made the quests, Quinn asked. Me? The system replied. I see why you would think so. I was designed after the original owner, the person whose idea was to create the system. My thoughts, my actions, everything is based around him. However, the system itself was created by someone else, and before you ask, the man often changed names throughout time, so even if I told you his name, you wouldn't know who he is. Since there wasn't much Quinn could do about the system for now, and it wasn't a problem, he decided to focus on the other matter. Looking at the quest, he noticed something that would cause them even more problems. The quest stated that they would need 7 different types of human flesh. Just like Quinn with his blood, he would only get stronger when consuming a new person's blood. The same could be said for Peter, who would have to consume different types of flesh. If, and I mean a big if, Quinn said, if we carry on using Vorden, will it still suppress his hunger? Yes, although he won't be able to evolve as quickly. Looking at Vorden's stump, it had now grown back to the point where it was just starting to form the wrist. He hated the fact that he had to rely on Vorden, and using him would only be delaying the inevitable. Right now he needed to find a solution as fast as possible. While these thoughts ran through his mind, he remembered the fight he had with Fex. Just before they left, he said, If he needs any help, he can seek him out. Quinn had no idea if he could trust him or not, and if the two of them got into a fight again, he knew in his current state he would lose. Although Quinn didn't get hurt during the fight, He also wasn't able to land a single blow, and it looked like the number of skills Fex had surpassed his own. The only thing Quinn had that could give him an advantage was his shadow ability. However, at the same time, he still hadn't seen what Fex's ability was, or if he even had one. But with no plans of his own and no guidance from the system, who else could he go to ask for help? He wouldn't be able to attack them while they were in the school. Vampires were a secret to the world, and he was sure Fex would want to keep it that way as well. It was a risk, but he would have to confront Fex and ask for his help. The 2-day rest period was over, and students were now required to go back to classes as usual. Vorden, Peter, and Quinn didn't feel like they had rested at all. Over the last few days, they had experienced one high-tense situation after another. In the morning, Quinn and Peter didn't go down to the canteen for breakfast. They had decided to stay in their dorm room. While Vorden still had the regenerative ability, he had decided to cut off another one of his limbs, but Vorden looked scared about cutting off his body part again. At first, Quinn was against him doing it again, but Vorden had convinced him it was necessary to make sure Peter wouldn't go crazy with hunger again today. When Quinn had finally agreed, they decided to cut off a bigger limb, because it would give Peter more meat to feed on. Eventually, they chose to cut off one of Vorden's legs. Quinn couldn't bear for Vorden to go through so much pain again. That's why he offered to help. With his greater strength, he was able to cut through the entire leg in one clean stroke. It took Quinn some time to mentally prepare for it, but he finally convinced himself that it would mean less pain for Vorden, which gave him the resolve he needed to do it. Vorden looked scared when Quinn was about to cut his limb off, but all of a sudden his facial expression changed. Instead of fear, it now showed anger. Vorden shouted at Quinn, "Just do it, you little—" After eating human flesh for 2 days in a row, it seemed like normal raw meat was no longer an option for Peter. When he tried to eat it, he immediately threw it back up, like his body was rejecting the raw animal meat. From now on, Peter would only be able to eat raw human flesh. Quinn was quite upset about this, because he didn't want to see Vorden go through this painful process again. Quinn now wanted Peter to evolve as soon as possible, as hopefully this would help with Peter's dietary problems. After Vorden went down to the canteen to eat, Peter was looking at the black bag with Vorden's leg in it. He couldn't stop himself from drooling, and his saliva was dripping out of his mouth and falling onto the floor. "Are you going to eat that or what? Don't let Vorden's sacrifice go to waste," Quinn said while holding a glass of Vorden's blood in his hand. They had collected it after cutting Vorden's arm off. It would have been a shame to let it go to waste. Quinn swirled the blood around in the glass before he drank it all in one big gulp. It tasted nice and sweet, and when he was finished drinking, he had a smile on his face. "How do you do it?" Peter asked with awe and horror on his face. "How can you be so calm about it all? How do you deal with this sudden change so easily?" "Trust me on this one, Peter. At first I didn't," Quinn replied, looking pensive. "Think of it this way. Everyone has multiple sides that they show to people. They are different with their family members compared to their friends, and they are different with their girlfriends compared to their family and friends. But does that mean those other sides don't exist when they are with different people? We choose to show people which side of us we want them to see. This way different people will form different opinions of us. I was scared too, but I chose not to show it to others. I was also very lucky that I found someone who helped me deal with everything." As he was saying this to Peter, his mind had immediately gone to Layla. Like he told Peter, he was extremely lucky that she was the first person who found out about his secret. Since she found out, she had been nothing but supportive. She also helped him learn a lot about being a vampire. He wondered how different things might have been if it wasn't for her. While Quinn was talking to him, Peter had been trying to hold back from eating the leg that was in front of him. However, he could no longer stop himself. As Peter started chomping down on Vorden's leg, Quinn turned around to look away. Even though it didn't bother him much, it still felt wrong to him looking at one friend eating another friend's leg. Quinn also realized he thought of Peter as a friend again. He suspected the strange bond between them might have something to do with this. When Vorden was done with breakfast, he had returned to the dorm room to collect Peter. He knocked on the door and asked Peter to come out. He didn't go in because he didn't want to see Peter eating his leg. Because the 2 days of rest were over, every student was required to start training in their combat classes again. Peter was still registered in the elemental ability class. He was currently known as an Earth user, and Vorden had a feeling that Duke was keeping an eye on him. After Peter had told them that Duke had gifted him with the level 2, 3 and 4 Earth ability books. Vorden was puzzled by this. He couldn't understand why Duke had given Peter those books. The only thing they knew was that for whatever reason, Duke wanted Peter to become a level 4 Earth ability user. The three of them split up. Peter and Vorden went to the elemental class, while Quinn went to his combat class. Now that Peter had been fed twice in a short time, the system assured Quinn that he could last at least 24 hours before he needed to feed again. At that time, Quinn needed to come up with a solution, or if he couldn't, he would have to find Fex and ask him for help. Vorden and Peter were together in the elemental class. However, they pretended to no longer be on speaking terms with each other, of course. Vorden still kept an eye on him, but he made sure to stay a few meters apart from Peter, or to always have a few other people between them. The teacher was currently making a demonstration. She was showing the different uses of her water ability. She was trying to teach the students that with a little bit of creativity in the use of their respective elements, they could even make their skills. All the students were gathered around her, and they were watching her display. While everyone was looking at the teacher, Vorden noticed that a couple of students had come over to where Peter was standing, and it looked like they were nudging him a bit. The three of them started to move away from the crowd towards the back of the classroom, out of sight of the main group of students. Are they working for Duke? Vorden thought. They won't do anything to him here, and Peter has just been fed, so he shouldn't go on another rampage. Peter had never seen these two students before and was a bit afraid, but when they approached him, he saw that they both had power levels of 2.4 and 2.6. He was no longer worried. One of the students whispered into Peter's ear, "Move to the back of the classroom." Once they were at the back, one of them whispered again, saying, "Duke has a message for you. Make sure you bring your Earth ability up to level 4 by the end of the week. If you do, there will be even more rewards for you." Peter agreed because he didn't know what else to do. As he looked down at his watch, all he could see was the number 1. Now that he had become a ghoul, he couldn't even use his Earth ability anymore. He was wondering how he was going to solve this in a week. Quinn can change the number on his watch by tapping it. Maybe I can ask him how he does that, Peter thought. Fex had woken up that morning and tried his best to fit in during his time at school. He hadn't thought much about what happened last night, and he didn't care that much about it. He was just trying to help a fellow vampire out, but if they didn't want his help, that was their choice. After staying at the school for only 2 days, Fex had already learnt something. Life at the school was quite boring. He had gone out to the city to talk to others and experience some new things, but doing things alone on his own sucked. For some reason, the other students were ignoring him. He chalked this up to being the new kid. Fex didn't know the real reason for this was that his watch was displaying he had a power level of 1. When he made his plan to explain his ability to the school, he hadn't realized there was so much discrimination towards weak people at this school. When coming to the human world, he was hoping to try new things and meet people, but right now he was wondering if he had made a mistake. Then he remembered there was one person that had spoken to him. Although it wasn't a very pleasant meeting, he still remembered it. The first student that he had met was Erin. After doing a bit of research of his own, he was able to find out her name as well as her schedule. Because Fex was a new student, he had to decide which combat class he wanted to go to, and after finding out Erin went to the Beast Weapons class, Fex knew what class he wanted to sign up for. Along the way to the Beast Weapons class, Quinn met up with Layla and Erin, who was trailing behind her. When they met each other, Erin couldn't help but stare at Quinn. Then suddenly, thoughts popped into her head about the book, Bite Me or Love Me. Her face went bright red and turned it away. Images would appear of certain people doing strange things with each other. Although Quinn had no clue what was going on, he was just happy it didn't seem like she was freaking out about the whole thing. It seemed like since Erin didn't have any clue about vampires during her childhood, the revelation didn't come off as a shock to her. On the way there, Quinn was thinking of possible safe ways to approach Fex. He would need to talk to him in a public place, where he couldn't use his abilities as freely, but before that, he needed to find out what class he was in, or where he was. They arrived in the large training hall, and Leo was there as usual. They hadn't seen each other since he had saved them from the Dalki, and the girls were a lot warmer to him now. As soon as they entered, Leo looked over in their direction and smiled. "If I didn't know any better, I would have thought he could see us," Layla said. "He probably just knows where the entrance is, and when he heard footsteps he smiled at us," Erin replied. But Quinn had a feeling that wasn't true, as he hadn't seen Leo smile at the other students before, and it seemed to be only directed at the three. What they didn't know was Quinn's aura was always easy to spot, and as soon as he stepped into the room, Leo immediately knew it was Quinn. This time, Leo gathered all the students at the front of the training hall, where a small platform had been raised. The platform was a similar size to a boxing ring, only there were no ropes, and it was raised about a foot off the ground. Leo stood on top of this platform as he explained the upcoming lesson to everyone. However, just before the lesson started, a new student had entered the room. Leo was completely distracted as he noticed something. This student had the same aura as Quinn did. "Hey, this is the beast weapons class, right?" Fex said as he walked through. "Who's that?" "I think it's a new student." "This late into the term, that means he must be a draft evader." When they looked at Fex, their interest quickly died down after seeing he only had the number 1 on his watch. He wasn't even worth getting to know, and it would only waste their time. Seeing this, Fex was once again annoyed. "What is wrong with these people?" Fex thought. As he said those words, he started to sniff about in the air. Something seemed to catch his attention. He moved closer to the smell until finally he realized where it was coming from. Quinn and Fex looked at each other. They both knew instantly that this was the person who they had fought last night. Fex gave Quinn one look up and down before walking off to find his spot to watch the lesson. This reaction surprised Quinn, to say the least. "Isn't he going to say anything? I'm sure he realized I was the person fighting him last night. If I can smell him, he can smell me," Quinn thought. But Fex wasn't bothered by other people's business, and that included vampires. He already gave out a lending hand, and if Quinn didn't want to take it, that was fine with him. As long as Quinn didn't try to get in his way, then there was no trouble between the two. The lesson had started, but it was hard for Quinn to concentrate. Still, the lesson seemed to be an important one, so Quinn tried his best to listen. "As you all know, we have been learning the basics of each weapon. I haven't taught you how to use each weapon individually, but only explained how to activate the beast weapon's power for a greater result," Leo explained as he drew out his katana blade. "But there will be times where one's weapon will break, or certain weapons will prove ineffective against the enemy." Leo then threw his blade at the wall behind him. It flew fast, and half of the blade managed to go into the wall until it stopped. "In these times, we will have to use our fists." The students started to mumble, using fists against beats, and the Dalki sounded barbaric to them, almost suicidal. "If we have abilities, why would we rely on our hands?" "Yeah, and even then, if I didn't have a beast weapon or was too tired to use my ability, surely guns would be better?" The students started to mock and laugh at Leo quietly. "I see. So you think that today's lesson is pointless, correct?" Leo asked. They were unaware that Leo could hear everything they were saying. Suddenly, Leo started to tear off his military clothing, and underneath he revealed a chest-piece armor that had the face of a demon on it. That's when the students also noticed he was even wearing beast gear on his feet as well. Erin, Layla, and Quinn all had seen this equipment before. It was the same equipment Leo had worn when he killed the Dalki. "You all know that our old technology, our weapons, were useless against them, and our nuclear weapons were rendered useless before we even had the chance to try them. Even armor-piercing bullets from a sniper rifle, at most, could knock a single-scale Dalki back. However, when activating the beast gear, the higher-level tier of equipment, the more empowered our bodies to become," Leo said. At first, the students thought they imagined it, but they could all see clearly that the blackish armor around Leo's chest was starting to light up and turn red. Little particles of steam were emerging from the piece as well. "Right now, if I was to throw a fist with all my force, I could crumble the foundations of this entire building." The steam started to disappear, and the chest piece's color started to return to normal. At that time, the students realized a certain pressure had disappeared, as if they were under a gravity heavier than they were used to, had disappeared from the room. They didn't need Leo to demonstrate. They could all feel the power he held in his hands. "So they finally figured out how to properly use the power of the beast, huh?" Fex said. "Well, it looks like they advanced quicker than my father said they would." "The power of the fist is useless if you cannot hit your opponent, or if you do not know how to throw a punch," Leo explained. "So for today's lesson, I shall be showing you a basic martial art that all soldiers are required to learn. For this, I will need a volunteer." Leo then started to look around the room until his head had stopped at one person. "Quinn, How about another spar with me? Out of all the students there, Leo had selected Quinn. It didn't come as a surprise to the others anymore. Since the first day, it seemed like Leo was favoring Quinn. He would often go to the area he was in most. He was the only one that had a spar with him one-on-one, and Leo seemed to have saved his life more than once. Having no good excuse to refuse, Quinn walked up onto the platform. "Hey, did that student always look like that?" a student asked. "I think so. I'm not sure I didn't pay any attention to him before." "It's a shame he is only a level 1. Otherwise he would be good boyfriend material," a female student said. Ever since evolving into a vampire, Quinn's looks had slightly changed. He was no longer the weak, skinny, frail him. His body had filled up, and he looked like he had a proportion of muscles all over. The students never paid much attention to Quinn in the first place, other than those that saw him as a target to pick on. Now, standing in front of the class, they were able to see him better. Quinn and Leo were standing at opposite ends of the platform. "Now for this session, once again, I would like you all to not use any of your abilities. Later on, we will try to learn how to combine your abilities with our fists to make more of an impact, but for now, forget about it," Leo explained as he looked at Quinn. "Okay, when you are ready, I want you to come at me and don't pull any punches." Leo assumed a fighting stance, and at the same time, a quest appeared directly in front of Quinn. "High-level opponent detected. Defeat the opponent in battle. Reward, instant level up." It seemed like the reward for winning the fight was the same as last time, although Quinn didn't feel like he could beat Leo any time soon. But the quest reward did give Quinn an idea. So far, each level up required him to earn double the amount of EXP before. However, this changed when he evolved at level 10. If at every 10 levels he was to evolve, then Quinn could time it right and challenge Leo to a fight at level 19. The problem then was, if he was to level up in front of Leo and the evolution process started straight away, what would he do then? As he got used to the system, Quinn had to start thinking about how to utilize it to give him an advantage over others. "Let's see if you are the person from last night," Fex, though standing by the sidelines. It was unlikely there was more than one vampire here. They were often vampires, sent as scouts at a military base, but they would be disguised as high-ranking officials. But Fex had never heard of one of these scouts being a student. "Do you think Quinn will do okay?" Layla asked Erin. "Do you not remember what Leo did to that Dalky? It didn't even take him that long, while the 5 of us, including Quinn, struggled," Erin replied. "I admit, Quinn is strong, and I hate to say this, from what I saw, probably stronger than me, but we're just students, and nothing compared to the ones above." The fight had started, and while Leo didn't move at all, Quinn started to dash in as fast as he could. He didn't have any of his beast gears on, so his stats were lower than usual, but he also wasn't being affected by the sunlight so much. "Wow, he's quite fast." Seeing Quinn dash from his position, he was certainly fast, but not fast enough for people to think of it as an ability. Quinn threw out a punch fast, but didn't add any of his blood skills. He knew he was limited by what he could use in front of everyone, but he still wanted to test himself after not being able to land a punch yesterday. However, Leo was able to move his head to avoid it. Quinn then changed his fist and went to grab Leo instead. He hoped to throw Leo to the ground, but it was too late. The man had already pivoted on his foot and went for a spin. While doing so, he lifted his other leg in the air and managed to kick Quinn right in the head. At first, Quinn thought he could take the blow from the older man, but he quickly realized his mistake. The force was strong and caused Quinn to fall to the ground. "Again," Leo said. Although the force was strong enough to cause him to fall, it didn't do much damage to a body like Quinn's. He tried attacking again, throwing punches of his own, but every time his attacks would come close, Leo would move or, using the palm of his hands, deflect the strikes. Then, when he was attacking, he would use his legs. The confrontation lasted about 10 minutes, and finally, Quinn was starting to get worn out by the whole thing. "Yep, those sloppy punches of his, that's the person I fought with yesterday," Fex thought. "Okay, that's enough," Leo said. Quinn was now huffing and panting a little, even though he hadn't used any advanced abilities, like the flash step or hammer strike. It seemed to be more tiring fighting against Leo. During the fight, Leo had displayed many different techniques, but what stood out to the students was how he thought. There was a style they all recognized. He would always use the palm of his hands for defense, and whenever he was attacking, he would use his legs. "What you have just witnessed is the martial art we teach our soldiers here. It is named the Pugna style. a mixture of karate amongst other things with the hands, while using a form of taekwondo in our legs. It's important. The reach in our legs is longer and more powerful than in our arms, but our arms are more versatile and flexible. Leo then started to look at the crowd of students again. Is there anyone here who would like to have a go? This is your chance to have a one-on-one battle with your teacher here. Most of the students were nervous. They didn't have many hands-to-hand combat experience because they focused on using their abilities or training with weapons most of the time. Other than the street fighting they did in school, they all felt it would be embarrassing for them if they were to go up. Out of all the students there, a single person had his hand raised. I wouldn't mind having a crack at it, a student announced as he sauntered forward out of the crowd. When he came into view, Quinn was surprised to see who it was. Just what is he thinking? Quinn thought. Oh, if it isn't the newbie, Leo said with a smile. Sweeping his black hair back with his hand and taking a look at Quinn, Fex had a big smile on his face. Bring it on.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.